Episode 5 of the Obi Wan Kenobi show was the ultimate key jangling for Star Wars fans. They really dug in here to exploiting the nostalgia of people from the prequels. And despite all of this shallow, surface level bullshit that appealed, of stuff being neat and fun looking, the show continues to get worse and just destroy the bigger universe in so many ways. So I have a lot to talk about at the end of this one, but I want to go through the episode first to give context to everything. I'm going to go over the bigger picture stuff at the end, so if you don't really care for the sort of play-by-play of the episode with complaints along the way, you can just go to the last 5 minutes. Also, if you're already here, go ahead and like and subscribe and all that shit. Alright, let's get into it. So right away we get prequel nostalgia with Padawan, Rat Tail, Hair Anakin, and Obi-Wan getting ready to duel. It would have been nice if they had de-aged Hayden Christiansen here. Thought it was kind of weird that they didn't, but whatever. After this little intro to their duel, which is piece by piece throughout the episode, we go to Reva. She's reporting to Vader. The tracker worked, and she's now the Grand Inquisitor. We go to Obi-Wan and the refugees. They can't go to Alderaan right away because a bunch of other people have to go to some other place. And Obi-Wan is eager to help, and I guess because we're just continuing the back-to-tank transformation from the beginning of episode 4. He's going back to more like he was in the prequels. Also more British sounding for some reason. So the base celebrates Leia being back. Con Artist Man is there really for no reason other than a couple specific plot points that they want him to move along. We go back to Vader. He says lock down the facility. And Reva starts questioning him in front of the entire bridge crew. And he just lets this happen. Not sure what world Vader ever allows backtalk from a subordinate. We go back to the base. Leia's corrupted droid messes up their electronics, so the hangar door is stuck shut. We go back to the duel of Anakin and Obi-Wan when they're young, and it's fine, but also my first thought is it not super dangerous for them to train with actual lightsabers? Some of these swings that they take, if they weren't blocked, would definitely kill the other person, so it doesn't really seem like the best idea. Anyway, from this flashback, we're supposed to know that Anakin is impatient, and Obi-Wan in the present says he doesn't have the patience for a siege, because the siege would take too long. Obi-Wan is speaking up like he's the leader of the rebels now, which is so opposite of his personality from the first 3 episodes, it's bizarre. And it's completely unearned. So Ice Cube's son says that he needs 3 hours to fix the doors, and Obi-Wan says you have 1. And this isn't a huge criticism, but I'm so fucking tired of this line in everything. Where they're like, oh, how much time is it going to take? And they give some time. And they're like, oh, well, you have 10% of that. And it always gets done. So why wouldn't they just say that fucking time to begin with? The stormtroopers show up outside the base, and they've kind of barred the door, and they have blast doors. It would be pretty scary if the stormtroopers ever actually did anything that wasn't either comically inept or just completely stupid. This whole thing, the way that they go about breaking through these blast doors is some of the dumbest shit in this show, which is amazing considering how fucking stupid this show has been. So they used some heavy turret to shoot the door, and they have to shoot it once and then reload and then shoot again. It doesn't really do anything. And I'll explain why this is nonsensical in a minute here, but that's their strategy for breaking through this blast door. Also, instead of just bombing the shit out of this place from orbit, but whatever. Right here, we get possibly the cringiest moment of the season. Ice Cube's son, who's the base electrician, and Con Artist Man are arguing because the doors aren't open yet. And the Con Artist guy's like, did you go into the vent and look at it? And Ice Cube's son says that he can't fit. So Leia jumps up and says, I'm going to need a ladder. First of all, what kind of base are they running where they can't get to their own electrical shit? And the guy who does the electronics doesn't have access to it? Do they use children for this routinely? Second, the idea that Leia knows how to fix a hangar bay door is fucking ridiculous. She's a princess. She's 10 years old. She has no need to have ever even seen this kind of thing. And also, in episode 2, Obi-Wan fixes her droid for her because she can't do it. So she can't fix a little toy droid, but she can fix the fucking hangar bay doors. And why in the fuck would all of these refugees put all of their faith in a 10-year-old girl that they just had to rescue who's been kidnapped twice in 3 days? And, if she doesn't figure this shit out, they're going to die. So this entire thing is just completely fucking stupid. Ice Cube's son says no, like he actually has common sense. And that's undone like 3 seconds later because Obi-Wan says, I trust her, so just do it. And they go along with it. So Obi-Wan goes off by himself to listen to a message from Bail Organa. And this message is like, if you were learning how to not write exposition for an obvious plot point, this would be it. He says that he's worried he hasn't heard from him and that he's going to go to Tatooine and talk to Owen about Vader's other kid. It's like he just dumps all this information on this unencrypted device. So this is like the laziest fucking writing ever with the way that they want the plot to progress. So Tarla comes in. She says that she turned over a bunch of families to the Inquisitors because she didn't know what they were going to do. So she does this to repent. And she's probably got more of an interesting character arc than Obi-Wan. I'm sure she'll have her own fucking show soon too. So Obi-Wan, now that he got his motivational speech from her, I guess he can fight now. He says he wants to talk to Reva and try to buy him some time. And this is also a really bizarre scene. They kind of like whisper through the door to each other like they're lovers or something and one of them's in prison. No clue how they're having this conversation through the fucking blast door, which can't be shot through. Try to talk to someone through like an exterior wall in your house. It's so fucking stupid, the entire dynamics of this scene. So Obi-Wan, during this conversation, realizes that she was a youngling during Order 66, and like everyone who has been watching the show already knew from the opening scene, she was one of the Padawans. And it turns out that she's actually hunting Vader. So we find out that she got stabbed by Anakin and then played dead. And this is just the first step in completely ridding the Star Wars universe of lightsabers altogether. I mean, this episode does a great fucking job of that. So I'll get more into that at the end. Once again, she blames Obi-Wan for what Anakin did. And this show likes to pretend that everything is Obi-Wan's fault, which I just don't understand. Like, Anakin does all this bad shit, and then everyone just blames Obi-Wan. It makes no sense to me. For people who actually saw the prequels, unlike the writers of this show, do you remember when he was off killing General Grievous on another planet in the middle of the Clone Wars? And he got shot off a cliff face during Order 66 when he was riding up the wall in his little four-legged dinosaur thing? I guess we're just going to forget all that shit. Obi-Wan's fault. So Reva gets mad at this conversation, and she just cannot act, or at least not for this role. She is just terrible. And she stabs the lightsaber through the door, and it opens in like 5 seconds after they wasted however many minutes shooting at it. Not sure why they didn't do this to begin with, but whatever. Obi-Wan force pushes her when she opens the door, and she goes like 100 feet back, but she just slides because she can't be knocked down by Obi-Wan apparently. And later we'll find out that she can't be knocked down by Darth Vader either. The stormtroopers fled through the doorway, and if they had any balls, this scene would have been like brutal and awesome. With stormtroopers getting shot, rebels getting shot, and stormtroopers just stepping over the dead bodies of their comrades as they get shot down. Just like relentlessly pursuing them. But instead a bunch of stormtroopers get shot, and the rebels, a couple of them get shot. One of them's like point blank by a stormtrooper. And Reva just hangs out in the back of the stormtroopers like she's like politely trying to get through a crowd or something. Okay, so they're retreating through these halls and stuff in this base, and Tarla slams another trooper down by the face. She must be like the strongest woman ever for her size. And also, how are they getting so close to her that she can grab their face without her getting shot? And also, why are they running up to her with only a blaster rifle in hand? Don't know. She gets shot eventually, and we get the dramatic music and Obi-Wan screaming no, and the loader droid comes and protects her. And it's all just super over the top. And if it was a show that I enjoyed more, it'd probably be a great scene. But because of how dumb this show has been, it's just like, please end. So Obi-Wan is already through the next door, and she shoots the door so that it shuts and he can't come back. And then she blows herself up with all the stormtroopers with a grenade. Vader has Reva stand down, and we go back to the duel with Anakin and Obi-Wan. And Obi-Wan gets disarmed and says, but it's not over. And like the area that they're in is essentially like a dueling ring. And they're about equal in the Force. So when you lose your lightsaber, it's over. But again, they're just ridding the Star Wars universe of the value of a lightsaber. So we go back to Obi-Wan in the present time, and he says it's over, and turns custody of Leia over to the con man, and gives him the message from Bail that he's going to drop later on so that Reva can find it. Reva celebrates Obi-Wan's capture. She still can't act for shit. In front of all the troopers, she says, you'll die soon. And he says, you're not bringing me to him. I'm bringing him to you. And this conversation is just like out in the open. And I guess it's just cool. And Obi-Wan is staying in character. He's a giant pussy now who's going to leave Reva to deal with Vader instead of dealing with Vader himself. So Vader shows up, and Reva, for some reason, had Obi-Wan sent away with only 2 troopers. Which, stormtroopers in Disney, 2 of them might as well be 0. So Obi-Wan gets away, obviously. No clue why he wasn't kept out in the middle of the 50 they had outside. Leia saves her droid from being corrupted, and she fixes the hangar doors. So she saves the day. Woo! Vader sees their ship trying to escape, and literally pulls it back down, and forces it to land, and then rips it apart. This to me is, I know people are going to think this is awesome. I think it's just fucking stupid. If Force users are this powerful, it would change space warfare. They could literally just fly around, ripping chunks out of ships in TIE fighters and X-Wings. They wouldn't even need big ships. And it would just destroy ships as they fly by with the Force. And I know Vader's one of, if not the strongest ones. So maybe they all couldn't do it as efficiently as him, but they could still do it. And also, do we remember when the Rebels flew away on Hoth and Vader didn't pull their ship back down to the surface? And also, do we remember fucking 2 episodes ago when Obi-Wan was 20 feet away through fire and he just let him go? When he literally pulled a spaceship leaving back down to the planet they're on? Yeah, so fuck this show. Fuck consistency. They don't care. So what we find out is that this ship was empty and a second one takes off. No clue why it was there. No clue how they knew to do this to trick Vader. No clue how he didn't see the second ship because it's just one hangar. No clue why he didn't pull this one down by himself either. No clue why Obi-Wan and Leia had to wait. If they had 2 ships, they couldn't go straight back to Alderaan on one of them. But fuck it. There you have it. They escaped. So in the flashback of the duel, Obi-Wan somehow avoids Anakin's lightsaber and then just takes it from him with the Force. And he says your need for victory blinds you, and that your constant need to prove yourself is your weakness. And all of this shit is they want you to see the parallels between then and now. It just makes no fucking sense. Both times, Anakin had him cornered. Had nothing to do with proving himself, had nothing to do with being obsessed with victory. He did everything right and then just inexplicably lost. In this scene where Anakin is swinging at Obi-Wan with no lightsaber, what if he had actually hit Obi-Wan once, or Obi-Wan hadn't dodged? He was gotten cut in fucking half in training by a Padawan. So Reva waits until nothing's happening and tries to stab Vader in the back. They were nice enough to make her a fucking idiot as well. Wouldn't the thing to do for this scene have been to have Vader trying to pull their ship back down, and that's when she attacks him from behind, so their ship escapes, and she's not retarded for attacking Vader when nothing else is going on, which is what happens in the show? Vader force pushes her, and again, she can't be knocked down. And this is weirdly the best scene in the show, but also terrible, because Vader just beats the shit out of her without ever pulling out a lightsaber. But also, he doesn't move like Vader at all. He looks like he's kind of dancing. And when has Vader ever spent time fucking with people? He gets what he needs, and he fucking kills them. And he's ruthlessly efficient. But, I guess he has flair in this show. So Reva's really not cut out for this role. I know I've said it 3 times this video, but she is just so bad. It's actually distracting. And in this fight, she just screams a bunch as she swings at him. It's really terrible. So she has her blade spinning, but she doesn't actually attack him with it. She just stands there with it spinning. So he takes it and breaks it apart. So he has 2 sabers and then gives her one. Again, Vader known for his mercy and fair play. So the choreography here is also dog shit. At one point, she rolls around the ground behind him, and he doesn't turn around. He just kind of half swings behind him and then looks confused, he doesn't know where she's at. And she's just rolling around on the ground. It's absurd. It looks like if you gave 2 kids lightsabers and were hey, go pretend to fight each other. So eventually, he takes her saber from her and stabs her through the chest. And he says that he recognized her from when she was a youngling. And the Grand Inquisitor shows up and is still alive, and he gives some more monologue bullshit. And again, lightsabers don't kill fucking anybody in this show. And I just want to understand, what Vader's motivation is here. He took in this girl that he knew hated him for some 10-year plan that she would be the one to flush out Obi-Wan eventually, and then he could kill her. I mean, what the fuck? So Ice Cube's son tells Obi-Wan that their hyperdrive is broken and the Star Destroyer is on its way. We cut back and Reva's still alive. At this point, it's like, why even fucking stab somebody in the chest anymore in Star Wars with a lightsaber? So she finds the message that Con Artist Man dropped from Bail Organa, where he literally mentions Tatooine and Owen and Vader's kids and Luke. Obi-Wan senses a disturbance in the Force, and we see Luke in bed. And that's it for the episode. The music was really good in that scene, so at least that's something. Alright, so I said I was going to do a lot of bitching at the end, and I want to talk about this episode in context of this season and Star Wars in general. I'm going to go ahead and start with Reva since she's the main character of the Obi Wan Kenobi show. I said this a couple of videos ago, but you don't get to be the good guy if you act like a giant piece of shit the entire time. If you wanted her to have a redemption arc, you need to have her feel guilty about what she's doing, not have her be the most fucking eager to murder everyone all the time. Like one episode ago, she had Leia racked up on a fucking table to get tortured because she thought a 10-year-old knew something about rebels. A 10-year-old that she knows is a princess that she had kidnapped in the first place. If you want this show to work, you can do small things like have her cut off that woman's hand and then whisper to her to say that the other two Inquisitors would have killed her, but she cut off her hand so that she could live even if she lost a hand. Not just like cut her fucking hand off for fun, which is what happens. Also, remember when she threatened to kill Owen and his entire family because he happened to be in the market that day? After all this shit, she doesn't get to be a good guy. She doesn't get a redemption arc. Fuck her. And they made her retarded. I said this a second ago, but the time to have her attack Vader literally is when he's distracted by Obi-Wan. Not after Obi-Wan's escaped and Vader's just chilling. But they wanted to have the two-ship trick and, the cool Vader stopping her blade with the Force and all this shit. Also, I'm pretty sure no one calls him Lord Vader in that scene where he stabs her and she doesn't die. The first time, because I had to specify in this fucking show. How does she know about Leia? Who the fuck knows? Like, her entire story is shit. Her motivation is shit. The way that it's written is shit. Like, if you want to write morally complex characters that do some disagreeable stuff for a bigger goal, you have to understand basic morality. Being a fucking piece of shit and then saying, oh, I'm a good guy at the end, doesn't make you a fucking good guy. And that's what they're trying to do here. And at this point, I wouldn't even be surprised if she survived this and she goes off to some bullshit side story because lightsaber to the chest means nothing. So I want to talk about Leia also, because the fact that everyone knows that Bail Organa has a connection to Obi-Wan means that that's it for him and for Leia. They would literally use them as bait again and again until they caught Obi-Wan. And the writers didn't even know what to do with her this episode, so they stuck her in an event and also made her the hero who saves the day. Inexplicably. I mean, the continuity is just fucked with this show. Just from the basic premise, it's just fucked. And she's like a 10-year-old genius, but also then like a typical 10-year-old sometimes. It makes no sense. But that's all previous episode shit. And the last big thing I want to talk about is the Force and lightsabers. Lightsabers have become impotent in Star Wars. And the Force is essentially just, you're a god now. Like pulling a speeding ship down to the surface. If you can do that, what can't you do with the Force? Remember when Yoda had to work pretty hard to lift an X-Wing out of the swamp on Dagobah? There are limits to what the Force can do, and Disney doesn't seem to understand that. You've got people pulling ships down and fucking lightning going through thousands of ships and whatever. People getting disintegrated and coming back to life. I mean, they treat it like unlimited magic. Just do whatever you want. And Reva has been stabbed not once, but twice in the chest by Darth Vader and not died. The Inquisitor got stabbed in the chest, not dead. The flashback duel Anakin loses to Obi-Wan after disarming him makes no sense. Vader doesn't even need a lightsaber to beat Reva's ass, which looks cool, but then it makes you wonder what's the point of even having a lightsaber. And this is such a stark contrast from the books. I haven't read a ton of the books, but I've read a couple of the trilogies. I like the Darth Bane trilogy and the Thrawn trilogy. And in the Darth Bane trilogy, he makes a point to not be around his apprentice, Darth Xana, without a lightsaber once she gets to a certain power level, because they're close enough in the Force that even though he's stronger than her, he knows that she would just cut him down. The lightsaber is supposed to be a deadly weapon. And at this point, it's like, it's pretty much just a shield that lets you deflect blaster fire at people. So, yeah, this show just sucks balls. It sucks balls within canon. It sucks balls within the general rules and the lore of Star Wars. It sucks balls within itself. It's just terrible. So way to go, guys. You had unlimited money, unlimited time, and we get dog shit. And I can only imagine that next episode, Obi-Wan and Vader are going to fight again, and Obi-Wan's going to beat him after literally being unable to use the Force at all for half this season. Makes no fucking sense. And Leia will end up on Alderaan because, spoiler, that's where she has to be. And I guess Vader and the Inquisitors and everyone will just leave her alone for 9 years. Fuck it, who cares, right? They don't really want to catch Obi-Wan that bad. They've just been looking for a decade. Alright, that's it for me for this one. Thanks. See ya.